Surviving violence, how to prepare for, prevent, and respond to threats. Nikki wrote a book about violence because she experienced violence on her own. And so she also wants to talk about to other people how to respond to violence, how to detect violence. And of course, big part is prevention. So welcome, Nikki. Thank you very much
for having me.
Talking to me. And if you might introduce yourself a little bit more.
So my name is Nikki Burgett. I have worked in law enforcement. I worked in corporate security, and I have done counterterrorism work for the State Department as a contractor. I also do, in the United States, I do a lot of workplace violence prevention. So I work with a lot of organizations. The first 24 years of my career I spent in the corporate world. So it has a big place in what I do.
Okay. What did inspire you to write your book?
So when I went into law enforcement, I immediately found a big gap in how law enforcement was trained, and a need for more advanced training in certain areas. And as I was doing that, I also realized, hey, look, I worked to prevent workplace violence for corporations. And for me, the number one thing is always training employees. Employees have to respond before law enforcement ever gets there. What they do in the moments before an incident or as an incident occurs will impact survivability. Now, I also like to say you could do everything right and you could still die, or you still become a victim or be injured. But if you do nothing, then your chances of surviving, it goes down significantly. So I want to empower people to be their own first responders and really, one, start with how do I prevent it, and is it preventable, and if so, how do I do that? And then if prevention doesn't happen, which bad guys find a workaround, then what do I do to help my chances of surviving? How do I respond? And I believe that always starts with mindset. So I had civilian courses that I built out, and then I did some online stuff during COVID. And a friend of mine told me, it's like, a better way to get information out there is to write a book. So I took all of my civilian courses and I put it reorganized and updated research, and then put it all in a book. So that's a culmination of all my civilian courses.
That's very interesting. So your book is for civilians, right?
It is.
Okay,
but funny thing is, I have worked with a lot of law enforcement lately, and I mention the book, and I do that because sometimes in law enforcement, the hardest thing for them to do is to get across to their families how important it is to, watch your surroundings, have situational awareness, and then I'm like, oh, so if you need another tool, hey, this book would be good for your kids. It's good for your spouse. There's often family members, and I found this with my two daughters, is I can teach anyone, but they don't want to listen to mom.
Yeah.
Sometimes having somebody else say exactly the same thing, just coming from someone outside the family, is like, oh, this is really important, and wow, this is really insightful. And meanwhile, the family is like, that's what I've been saying the whole time. So for law enforcement, the behavioral pattern detection stuff that is in here is helpful to them. But I just tell them, like, hey, look, if you can't teach your own family, here's another resource to help keep them safe.
Yeah, there's a saying we have in Germany. It goes, "You don't believe the preacher in your own house." That's kind of the situation that you're having there.
Yes.
So what's a big misconception about violence that people have?
That it's not it's not predictable, and it's not preventable. I've heard entirely too many people, especially in the private sector, just for us, workplace violence has been such a big deal. There's like, oh, well, you can't. There's no way to know. But then after every incident, there's somebody who comes out and goes, oh, well, we all knew that if someone's going to snap, it was going to be him. So the indicators are there. So to say it's not predictable is not correct. Mm-hmm. So I want people to know that, you're looking at two baselines: the baseline for the situation, which when it's your place of employment, when it's your kid's school, when it's your neighborhood, it's your community, what the baseline is, what normal is. Mm-hmm. And anytime anything happens that's outside that normal, you get the hairs on the back of your neck that stand up, that feeling in the pit of your stomach and you're like, oh, something's not right. The problem is overcoming that and doing something about it rather than just going, oh, I'm overreacting, or, oh, it's probably nothing, or looking around and going, well, no one else seems to care, so it must not be a big deal. It's being able to trust that gut. And sometimes just removing yourself from the situation can change an entire outcome, but you can't prove a negative. So you'll never know. You may never know what you prevented just by changing your own behavior. And, you know, I mean, like anything from if I've got my earbuds in and I'm just minding my own business and I'm looking at my phone, people are going to leave me alone. Well, we saw what happened on the train ride for the girl who was looking at her phone and had her earbuds in. And she became the one victim when he was surrounded by people, but he chose her. So I want people to, again, I love the word empowerment. I want them to know that they can impact. And I may do everything right and it still not be a good outcome. But as I tell my friends and family, especially with me going overseas a lot, I would tell them, I was like, just know that if I went out fighting. Like there was no tweeting or texting my last goodbyes and saying, oh, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. Oh, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely trying, and I may lose, but I'm going to try.
Okay. With the girl on the train, would you say that this was preventable if she didn't have the earplugs in and not looking on her phone, or would you say this is one of the incidents where you can't win?
So I don't like being the armchair quarterback and like judging somebody, especially judging a victim on what they did wrong.
Yeah.
But to look at it and say, what is there something that if I found myself in a situation where I was getting on a train, how can I do it differently to maybe make the outcome differently, right? So I tell people, if you're going to listen to music, only have one earbud in.
Yes.
I don't know that would have helped her because he was quiet. It's not like he made some declaration, hey, I'm going to stab you. So I don't know that her hearing would have changed the difference. I will say that sitting with somebody directly behind you can be something that we avoid. So maybe find somewhere else. I'm going to sit next to the window and I'm going to turn my body so that my back is to the wall and I don't have, even if there's a seat here, I can sit to where I've got a view of everything that's going on around me. It may be as simple as let me sit away from everyone.
Yes.
That means that if somebody's going to attack me, they've got to get up and I have time to see them coming. So distance is always safety. But again, I want to go back to, I'm not judging her.
Yes.
I think what happened to her was absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
But what can we learn from the situation? So even when I go to the gym, I don't wear earbuds. I wear one because if something were to happen in the gym, I want to be able to hear. So don't remove your senses. Being in public places, I try not to look at my phone very often. I got a lot of that as a police officer because I would have people in my agency texting me and they're like, why aren't you answering? And I'm like, I'm not getting my phone out.
Yes.
Like I have a radio.
Yes.
So I'm like, if I find myself in a moment where I can check, but like if I need help, I'm radioing in. I'm not pulling out my cell phone and doing stuff.
Yeah.
So so I would just say keep all your senses in play. Keep as many of them in play as you can. And sometimes just being more aware of your surroundings makes you less of a victim, because criminals want easy victims. They don't want somebody that they think is going to fight.
Yes.
So they look for people who aren't paying attention.
Yeah. No, I totally agree to the girl on the train that it's not really something I think that could have been prevented, because like you're saying, he didn't make any noise. He just suddenly did it, there's nothing that she could have detected, even if she maybe didn't have the earplugs in or the phone in her hand. But I totally agree. I do exactly the same with the one earplug. I never wear both. If I'm at home, I do it, but never outside. We a little bit talked about like the attacker. So what's about the victim? If not to become a victim, what can people do or learn about themselves to not be in that situation?
So aside from making sure that you keep your senses in play, mindset is always first. So, I mean, like in the States, I deal with a lot of people who conceal carry. And one of the biggest problems is that they don't have the mindset. They don't train as frequently as they should. And so unfortunately, it means that they're more of a liability than they are anything else, and including to themselves. So when I talk about before you train your body, before you go and get Taekwondo or Krav Maga classes, I want you to train your mind. And so the two things that you start with are, what are you physically capable of doing? And that will change over time, right? I mean, like, you can have a surgery, you can have an injury, like, so always be assessing where you are, and age, unfortunately, changes our abilities. So think about, what am I physically capable of doing? So understand that first. And then the second is, what am I mentally prepared to carry out? And those are not the same thing. So I know that it is possible to survive jumping from a third floor building. And there's a lot of variables, but I wouldn't want to do any higher than the third floor. And but let's say, so I remove all the barriers, right? So now I can break the glass, and I'm standing on the precipice, and I know that whatever's coming behind me, that I have a much better chance of jumping out the window than facing that threat. Am I ready to jump? Mm-hmm. And I love that example because I'm terrified of heights.
Yes, me too.
So I always have to use it. I'm like, well, I know I can jump. But if you look at the 9/11 incident, you had people who were physically capable of evacuating down the stairs, and they sat down and gave up. Yeah. And then there were other people who came by and they were like, no, come with me, help me. And in some cases, both of them perished in the stairwell. And in other cases, like, the one person was able to get the other one out. So you also have to think about, so like, how far am I willing to go to help someone? And to ask yourself those questions before. Okay, well, is it a relative? Then yes. Is it a coworker? Well, maybe. It depends on whether or not we've been fighting. like there's so many things. But, and then if I'm going to help save somebody, how many times am I going to say, come with me before I give up? And there's no judgment in that, but it is understanding, what am I willing to do? Mm-hmm. And in that willing, there's so many questions to be asked. And when it comes to the physical side, well, am I alone? Because I may respond differently than if I'm with my young kids, or if I'm with elders, mm-hmm. Or if I'm with somebody who's physically disabled and they're in a wheelchair, then what I'm going to do. So what I tell people is to start that mindset change. We start with playing we call it the what if game in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. I call it the what when game, because we don't say if, we say when. Right. So when this happens, I can do this. And training your brain starts with, you do it 30 seconds once a day, or every time you change locations. And then it will get to where you are doing it 30 times, like a few seconds a day. And it's like muscle memory, right? So you're just training yourself. So you walk into a place and you're like, okay, so if someone was a threat, where were they likely to come in? Where do I sit in relation to that? Where's my secondary exit? Who do I have with me that I'm responsible for? Who's with me that could be an asset? And sometimes even, it's because I live in Oklahoma, so we are a bunch of just rednecks. Yeah. And so like, I can walk in and I'm like, okay, former law enforcement, former military, and like, I just know that look, and I know. Yeah. Some of them were Solomon's. To me, that's a dead giveaway. The haircut, just the way that they're all facing the door, and I'm like, okay, asset. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done. But I don't spend a whole lot of time, and I certainly am not. I don't allow myself to become, what's the word? I'm just scared all the time, right? So I'm just like, oh my gosh, well, when it happens, well, I'm not even going to leave my house. Yes. Well, your house isn't always safe either. So I'd come home from being overseas, and, I'm all chill. I'm, going to have a glass of wine, watch some Netflix. And I see these people walk by my front window, and where I live, that's unusual. And it's a group of like younger kids. And the first time I'm like, okay, I'm watching. The second time, I'm like, put the glass of wine down, turn off the TV. Now I'm really watching. Mm-hmm. And I could hear them talking, but couldn't hear what they said. And the way my blinds were, I knew there were multiple, but I didn't know how many. And I have, like, my front door is an alcove. So as he walked towards my front door, still talking, it got louder. He grabbed my front door and tried to come in.
Oh, okay.
So like, you don't ever know. So it was assessing the situation as it was occurring, and I'm upping my response with each one. And then it's, okay, so are they casing? Do they want to know if someone's home? Do I just call 911? Do I interact with them? What do I do? Well, because I have law enforcement training, I'm like, well, I'm not waiting for them to break down the door, so I have to shoot them. Like, I don't want to be in that situation. No, absolutely. So I retrieve my firearm. But in the US, you don't get to show your firearm without just cause. And that's even for civilian. It's called brandishing your firearm. So they had not given me any cause except trying to come in the house. And I opened the door with a firearm behind the door.
Okay.
And I said, can I help you?
Yes.
I think 2 of them were under the influence of drugs.
Okay.
Weed.
Mm-hmm.
They were laughing.
Okay.
And the one guy is like, oh, I'm really sorry. We were trying to find our friend's house. And I said, you find it by trying to open the door?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, well, we're lost and whatever. And I said, okay, well, in a state where there are a lot of armed people, I said, walking in somebody's front door is probably not the best idea. And all the color drained from his face. And he was like, we're really sorry.
Yeah.
And they didn't immediately go. But for me, it was, I can call the cops right now. And then I risk them breaking that door in if they are sure no one's there. And so that was why I was trying to measure. So I did call the police because they didn't leave right away. Okay. And then when the officer got there, they couldn't find him. And he goes, well, you probably shouldn't open the door. And I understand. And I would tell a civilian that too, but I'm not.
Yes.
and I'm like, I don't want to have to shoot anyone. I don't ever want to have to shoot someone. So that's why I was like, well, I would rather confront them and make sure that they know I'm here.
Yes.
That was a bad idea. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
So I got my point across, but you never know where you're safe. So I don't want you to be fearful. I just want you to be aware. And the example that I use in that is zebras, because a zebra knows when the lion is hungry, he's coming, not if. Mm-hmm. But the lion still goes out and grazes. The lion goes out with his family herd, goes to the watering hole, but the zebra is aware. Like it doesn't, that the knowledge that the lion is out there does not stop him from living his life. And that's what I want us to do. So pay attention and have a plan, because when the lion decides he's ready to eat, the zebra has a plan. He's just,
yes.
He doesn't have to be the fastest zebra. He just can't be the slowest.
I totally agree with that. And that's what I also told people on my courses. Like, don't be the stupidest person on the place, and you're probably safe. There's no guarantee, but I totally agree. If you're in a constant state of awareness, the chances that something is happening to you are very low, because you might see that beforehand.
Yeah,
so,
and criminals want easy targets.
Exactly,
they really do.
Don't want to fight.
So they want somebody that's not going to fight them. They want to intimidate. They want to scare. And if you're the one person who's watching people, they're going to want somebody else. Yeah, I mean, unless 100%. They have chosen you specifically, and you are the target, and that's a whole other, that's a different ballgame. And again, that whatever you've decided your response is going to be based on all the elements that you have going on, that's when it's go time. And you're like, and then you're responding. And when you do that, if that is part of your plan, and I call it a personal response plan, you've decided I'm physically capable of this, and I've trained, and I know I'm willing to do this, and this is what I'm going to do, you go all in. There is no hesitation. The savagery that they bring to the table, you have to take one level above.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Absolutely one level above. Okay. And there is no hesitation, just you're all in.
Yeah. Well, 100% agree with
There's no fair fighting. There's no such thing as a fair fight. It is a fight to survive and overcome.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So thank you very much. And
thank you.
Whoever wants to buy your book, where can they find it?
So they can find it on Amazon, and Universal Publishing or Publishers is the publishing company, but Amazon is probably the easiest place to find it. And you can just go in and type Nikki Burgett or Surviving Violence, and either one will come up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you.
And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.